Cassie, can I ask you a question?
Cassie, how are you, my friend?
Yo, what's up?
How do I sit down?
Your
I
avatar
don't
is
know.
one.
Hover your cursor over a chair, and you'll see a little click to sit icon that comes up.
So Diego, if you and I want to sit with me, feel free. Otherwise, sit wherever you want. I'm gonna take a seat right here.
I'll hover my cursor. There we go. Thank you.
Does anybody else see a gray man over by me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's not just me then.
No.
That's a camera.
Oh, that's your camera. Okay.
That's one of our cameras. Yeah.
If you click, you'll come out of your seat. So you hit the space bar, it unlocks your view, and you swish your cursor around to be able to look side to side or up and down. And then there you go. Look to the
The only
left.
thing, Thomas, is they don't let you go full exorcist. You can't go 360
No.
degrees.
Pretty bendy, but yeah.
You get close. You get close to exorcist status.
And then you just hit spacebar again to lock it. There's also a screen zoom at the top of everyone's screen that if you wanted to zoom in and look at a screen without getting up, you can use those too.
Cool. Well, should we get started? We probably have a couple of people come in as we get going, but welcome, guys. This is season 2, episode 1. So excited to introduce our guest today, which is awesome. Anna's a partner at Page Executive. She's focusing on Web3 and blockchain career placement. She specializes in C-level recruitment. It's very aware of the current and future workplace trends. And she sits on the board at the Hanseatic Blockchain Institute, working together with the German Ministry of Economics to foster blockchain adoption in Germany. She's also a member of the European Blockchain Association. So welcome, Anna. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Good to be
You
here.
bet. And Diego Borgo is a Web3 and Metaverse advisor with over a decade of experience in digital marketing and branding. He's worked with brands such as Adidas, Prada, G-Star, Salesforce, Unilever, L'Oreal, MasterCard, Volkswagen, Porsche, Cupra, and Shell. In addition, he is the proud professor at Borgo Academy, and I think 2 of us at least are a proud alum. Henry's in here. And he also co-hosts Right Click Save the World podcast with Anthony Day. So welcome, brother.
What a hell of an intro, man. I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Chris. I'm stoked to be here.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for joining us. Just a couple of housekeeping items. We will be recording this. This will go on YouTube. So if anybody wants to visit it back, we'll be happy to share that. Sarah here to my left is the VIP of community for the world that we're in right now. So we couldn't do this without her and her team at Cosmos. So thank you very much, Sarah, and you, Mike, for getting everybody in here, and Todd for all the video help.
Of course. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so with that, one more piece of information. LinkedIn, we have Inspired People, Inspired Places page, so please join us there. We actually have the whole season already ready to go. We're going to publish all 10 episodes. So, and then at the end of this, we're going to take a picture, and we have a POAP in one of the other rooms. So excited to hand this over to Dave Cairns to get the conversation started, and let's go.
Right on. Thank you, everybody, for coming. But Chris, before I start, I'm just wondering, should we switch to a roundtable format here? Get everybody around the same table? Just a thought. I don't want to disrupt it, but if it's easy, just thought I'd put it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. If everybody can sit back down. Ready?
Do it. Let's sit at the same table.
There you go.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Rick,
And I should give credit.
bread.
I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Sarah just sent me a DM on that. How cool! Like, you know, you can't do that in real life. Sarah would have to like run over to my chair, whisper in my ear.
We would have to call facilities. We would have had to change out furniture in order.
Yeah,
that was pretty
all right.
Yeah, get a purchase order.
We're supposed to have music and less chairs out.
That's
We can
true.
do
That's
that.
true. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here, Diego and Anna, and to everybody that is a returning guest of Inspired People, Inspired Places. Thank you very, very much from the bottom of our hearts for helping us grow this cool conversation series and community. Today, we are here to talk about how Web3 and the Metaverse can have a bigger impact on the future of work. And so, I just want to call out that I'm a noob in this whole environment. It's something that I just got into recently. And excuse me. And when I think of Web3, Metaverse, the blockchain, crypto, these are all pretty elusive terms to 99% of the world. I'm 30 quarters of the way through Matthew Ball's book, The Metaverse. Currently listening to Competing in the Age of AI. I've listened to numerous Diego Borgo podcasts and LinkedIn Lives. I've talked to Chris Moeller, my co-founder of Inspired People, Inspired Places, at length about all of this stuff. While considering myself an intelligent and self-reflective person, I have honestly no fucking clue what any of it really truly means. And while I don't want to make assumptions on behalf of our audience, I feel pretty confident that a lot of us are in the same boat. And so in throwing myself some self-compassion and in recognizing that our audience is curious about how all of this will not just impact, consumer behavior or our finances, they may more notably be curious about the future of work. So that's where I want to take this conversation. I want to go in a little bit of a different direction than what I've at least experienced when talking about the future of the internet. I want to talk about how existing technology such as our lovely homey open campus community here in the Orion growth co-working space are in fact another dimension of our existing lives. And I want to build on this to inform how we will not only involve the technology, but perhaps more relevant, how we may consider reshaping human behavior. Because this technology that we're using right now and anything that we build in the future has to serve the future of work. It just simply has to. If it's not in service of us, then really what the fuck is the point? So here's how I want to transition to my first question. As someone who's never been inside of a virtual world before February of 2023, I found it a bit odd that experts in the areas of Web3 and Metaverse don't seem to connect and collaborate inside of virtual worlds in the way that we are now. At least I haven't been able to find any conversations that I could go and join. So as an outsider, not only does this not feel on brand, it feels like a problem because the benefits have really stood out to me in a very short period of time. And I know our audience feels the same because many of them keep coming back. So for my first question, and I'll start with Diego, really, really simply, why?
I love it. I love you putting that as the sort of like the initial conversation, because a lot of times I'm a preacher about that, right? You gotta walk the talk, and all the work I'm doing, on the products that Chris has mentioned before within Borgo Academy and all of that is walking the talk. We did that on Borgo Academy on where we have like a a networking event where everybody gets on the first day of the class and the course and gets together and get to know each other. We did a bunch of different exercises as here you wouldn't be able to do in so quickly on the on the physical world. Breakout rooms, get people to do one-on-ones, speed dating, just like flashing people from left to right, which was really exciting. And I felt the same way when I did that. First, it was such a no-brainer for me, because if I'm doing a masterclass on how brands can enter the metaverse or how brands should enter the metaverse, that for me should be on the space where we are preaching, right? So I don't know the why. I think that there is still a lot of barriers for a lot of people to utilize the tooling. Quality is still questionable in many different platforms as well. We've seen, Decentraland and Sandbox pushing really hard to move forward towards that direction, but then, Spatial as well doing a lot of work on enhancing the tooling. So I feel that the tech didn't quite caught up yet, and the overall experience that we all would love to have. And I think that in January next year, when Apple finally comes out with the product, people are going to start experiencing a much more like enhancing experience, if you will, which I think is going to start turning the wheel a little bit towards that direction, right? It's going to be more transformational. Obviously, from a price point, from a hardware perspective, still is not the way we're going to bring everybody into this space. But I think is a step towards that direction, is a step by step. but I'm a preacher of walking the talk, and I'm on the same page than you, that if we are saying that this is where we want to be and this is the future of how we're gonna be communicating and connecting with each other digitally, we should be using those tools.
Right on, right on. Anna, do you have any additional thoughts on this specific broad question? I can also take you in a little bit of a different direction if need be.
No, I think I agree a lot with what Diego said previously, and I can just relate to my own experiences with the metaverse. I'm not hanging out all the time in certain metaverses. I'm also not a gamer personally or something, but I remember in 2021 when there was this big NFT hype going on, I was actually really, really interested to try it because it would have been like my first step into the metaverse, and it was, I think, around Halloween. And I was part of this, one of the NFT projects that were doing a Halloween party in Decentraland. So I was super, super hyped for that. And we're like, oh my God, this is going to be so cool. I'm going to enter like a metaverse Halloween party. And then I entered Decentraland and I just couldn't, like, I entered Decentraland itself, but not the party. I didn't know where to move. Nobody told me where to go. There was no explanation anywhere. And I just was standing next to two other avatars. And I just didn't know what to do. And that was basically my metaverse letdown experience because I felt like, okay, that's it. I don't know, it's not really engaging or fun. And so I guess it's a similar experience for many other people. I think it's also a matter of where your friends hang out and where your colleagues hang out. And I think there were statistics about how many people use Decentraland or Sandbox on a daily basis, and it was really, really low. So I mean, we all remember how we started with Instagram and Facebook, probably because many of our friends started doing it and spending a lot of time there. Well, if your environment is not doing it, you won't do it either, or not that much. And I think that's what's missing. Like there is no big push, or it's like with ChatGPT as well. I mean, if I would know like one or two people using ChatGPT, I might not be that much into it. But if I hear that half the world, or maybe not half the world, but many people are starting to use it, I might be more inclined. I mean, people are really a bit of a herd. So I guess that's what's missing, this herd movement. Also, if you look at the current metaverses that we have, it's very, very like if you ask people what metaverse they use, if they use one, it's very, very fragmented. There's not this one or two or three metaverses they use. Of course, like Roblox or Minecraft are the most used ones, but only for the gaming population mostly, and not necessarily for those who want to work on something. And then it's really distributed equally across many different platforms. So there's no interoperability yet, or not much. It's really low usage. So I think these are the things that keep it from mass adoption right now. And also, yeah, it's not being very, I don't know, it's not like an immersive experience. I mean, right now we're sitting in the metaverse, and yet I don't see many micro expressions or things. I can't read everybody as good as I could in real life. So I think these kinds of things, once they improve, yeah, more people will definitely come.
I really dig that. You really kind of dove into a lot of the hows in terms of getting things to move forward. Something that really, I think, is plaguing Chris and I a lot is the fact that there is a ton of friction from a corporate adoption perspective in getting into this environment. And there's a few things that stand out to me. I mean, in one sense, I think that it's difficult for adults to wrap their head around, coming in and sort of playing games in a sense with, the way that we work and the way that we connect. But I'm really kind of noticing actually there's two main points of friction, and I'm wondering if you guys have any suggestions on how to solve these problems. One is actually very simple. It's a security issue for a lot of companies. Many people actually can't even get into these conversations because they only have a work laptop, and there's no two laptop world or two phone world anymore. And they just don't have the ability to get the permission from their employer. And then the second is actually that I don't think that necessarily people think this is stupid. I think that they may feel out of their depth, or they may feel uncomfortable trying to navigate these environments. And so, like, one thing I'd like to just like challenge you on, Anna, and in a respectful way, and it's how I'd like you to maybe try and answer the next question. I keep wondering, like, do we have to change our mindset around like adoption of emerging technology? Because while I agree with you can't pick up people's micro expressions, things like that, I've heard a ton of really positive feedback about being able to use the existing technology. And so if we are all here and there's 30 of us and perhaps more people had the security, issue go away, could we do things differently with this existing technology if we just simply adapted our mindset and around, just using what we have today? What do you think?
Definitely. I mean, definitely. I think it's also a generational thing because if we look at usage of mobile phones or gaming and all these things, I mean, there's a big difference between the baby boomer generation, the Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. So Gen Z people and those that will follow are so much more accustomed to using technology. I mean, when I was growing up, I didn't have a phone or like a smartphone when I was, I don't know, like 8 years old or something. So, of course, naturally, this whole social thing was not like, I mean, I was just living the real life, on the playground in the real world because there was nothing else. But I think those that are growing up right now, I mean, it's super normal to have a phone, like their own mobile phone super early. I see babies sometimes with some gamification on their phone, I don't know, at the age of 1 or 2 or below, like because parents might be wanting a break from them or wanting to calm them down. And I saw people, I don't know, when I was in Paris at an event and I saw some people, yeah, using mobile phones and gaming to calm the little children. So this generation just grows up naturally much more tech savvy than previous generations. So I think there's definitely a way to use what we already have more simply because people are just more like it's so natural to them. And if I explain my mom nowadays WhatsApp, yeah, she can use it, but it's like her usage is so limited to just making phone calls on WhatsApp simply because she like just typing is so weird to her, being from another generation. So I think the younger generation is definitely will be much more into that naturally.
Yeah, I dig that. Really, really insightful answers. Thank you. So Diego, to turn it over to you, I guess, you're focused on getting brands into the metaverse. To just flip the script, how would you go about getting corporations metaverse to connect and collaborate?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting and exciting part of it, right? Because we talk a lot about this sort of like the consumer metaverse or consumer facing metaverse, right? But if you think about where there is a ginormous potential, and I've been lately talking quite a lot about that, is exactly on sort of like the B2B side of things, right? When you think about the so-called industrial metaverse, or when you start thinking about how you can foster collaboration between either companies or even within the specific company through platforms like that. The future of work, which is obviously the main motive why we are also here in this conversation. It's where for me the huge transformation is on, right? We obviously have been forced to work remote and digitally for 2.5 years or something like that within the pandemic, and that has obviously transformed behavior at scale. Globally, we are more connected today as humans digitally than we ever been before, and one of the very few things that has not changed while that macro transformation has happened is the tooling we use, right? We still on Zoom calls, we still on Teams and Google meetings, and it's you do that 8, 10, 12 hours a day. It's horrible, right? It's extremely difficult to live within that sort of like environment because you're just seeing boxes on the screen, you're following faces and people around, right? So for me, there within that space, in a way that it creates a huge opportunity for companies to start fostering in new ways of one, connecting their now more than ever worldwide spread teams, getting people together in a place, having a way on which it feels much more real to connect, right? I look here, looking around the table, it feels that we are much closer than how it would feel if we would be on a Zoom call, right? A bunch of people would have camera off. We don't really see who is there, how people are sort of like engaging, within the conversation. And that for me is just the tip of the iceberg, right? So if you start zooming out from there, you can look into how people are going to collaborate, right? We could definitely right now throw a 3D prototype in the middle of this table here and start brainstorming how that product could look like, right? We can get someone that's a designer to make changes in the second we are speaking here, and that prototype is going to get shape. And let's say that we got a bunch of engineers, data scientists, consumer insights, marketeers, salespeople all around this table, and we just start shaping that 3D prototype right now to then go and put in an MVP and test on the streets. I mean, how exciting is that we are able and have the tooling right now that we could do for to foster this type of conversation or collaboration within a team, right? And if you want to zoom out even more, imagine the possibilities of, again, the sort of like the industrial metaverse, which is you can simulate a lot of different things now through that technology, right? You can look into buildings, you can see how long it's going to take for certain parts of specific machines to wear out, what does heat would create into that machine, or how does you can create digital twins of different factories and see how different how different areas are performing, and how you can change certain parts of those areas to perform even better, or how machines are playing within that ecosystem. And now obviously with the advancement, and by advancement I mean getting in more people's hands of AI, is obviously becoming super exciting, because you can connect the two, and the potential of what can be created with that combination is endless, right? If you play a little bit of video game on your life, you understand that there's NPCs, right? Non-playable characters. You understand there's a lot of things that can be done from a customer service perspective, can be done from a sort of like an engagement perspective, can be done from a training perspective, can be done from a a co-creation or collaboration perspective, that we can now use tools that make us more efficient and be able to take better decisions as a group, as a whole, together. So I think that the overlap of those technologies that are coming up right now are really exciting and are providing us as a strong step forward. I think that the major issue, to go back to your question after a very long ass answer, the major issue
Great answer, Diego. Great answer.
Within organizations is that a lot of organizations are just jumping from hype to hype, right? We've seen that with NFTs being the next shiny thing, and then after that became the metaverse, and after that became Web3, and now is AI, and soon is going to be quantum computing, and when Apple released the goggles, is going to be spatial computing. So I think it's a lot about jumping from hype to hype, but what is really transformational and really exciting for me is zooming out and understanding how we are building this stack of technology, right? So I know a lot of people are saying that AI has killed everything else, and now it's just about AI, or metaverse is dead, or Web3 is dead, and NFT is dead. The thing that a lot of people are missing the point when it comes to these upcoming technologies is that all what we are doing and all what we experience is aimed at one thing. It's enhancing customer experience, right? So the way we connect digitally, the way we purchase digitally, the way we work digitally, those are all customers' experience, right? Someone is selling a service, or we are selling a service to someone. That's all what it's about. And all those technologies are coming together and building a stack of technology, because a stack of technology cannot be made of one technology. So, you can see the metaverse, immersive experience, immersive web, immersive commerce, whatever you want to call it, being sort of like the new interface of the web, right? The way that we now will be able to connect with each other. We now will be able to go deeper into the way we are connecting with the digital world. And companies that are starting to realize that there is an entire new stack of technology getting together and being built in order to foster and enhance customer experience are the ones that's gonna be in advantage on this next iteration of the web, this next iteration of how we connect digitally as humans.
Clap button, yeah, people clap. Really well said. And I think before we transition to final question, before some Q&A, I just want to encourage folks to put comments and questions into the chat. And Diego, just to kind of expand on what you just said, I want to actually share two anecdotes from two of our previous speakers. One gentleman's named Darren Murph, and when he arrived in the lobby of the Orion co-working space, he made this comment that his favorite method of chatting or connecting with other people is by phone, because it forces the need to really pay attention to what someone is saying, essentially immerse themselves in their words. But then what he remarked is that there's this feeling of being together, this feeling of being among each other inside of this virtual world. And I really think that there is an aspect of that just fires up the parts of our brain that make us feel like we're breaking bread or we're around a fire. And that's why I'm encouraging a lot of people to think beyond the friction of the technology, because I think we can get some of those benefits. We had another woman named Rowena Hennigan, who's a great speaker and remote work consultant. And she actually stood up on the table, remarking that she had the opportunity to do that in a very patriarchal world that she had existed in her career to this point, that she could be the woman to stand on the table in the metaverse. And so I thought that that was really, really impactful as well. So I just really love that you were able to go there. We are seeing what you are talking about in this conversation series that we're doing. So it's really awesome. So to transition to our final question before we get to Q&A, I actually want to call out one of our audience members, Thomas Stadt, who just published an incredible article entitled The Adjacent Impossible. He dove deep on the mental models to foster innovation, the adjacent impossibilities that become possible. Things like the courseless carriage, aka the car, carrying 10,000 songs in our pocket, aka the iPod, or being able to talk to someone 8,000 miles away while seeing them. So I want to riff on that for our final question. Here today is a group of globally distributed people that are engaged and immersed with one another, free of the constraints of judging our personal appearance or social status by naming a couple of examples. We're on a level playing field and we're having fun and we're learning while we do it. So my final question, and I'll start with Anna, it's really less of a question, more of an opportunity to start a workshop with our remaining time. What are some of the questions that we can ask that will help us evolve what we're doing right now for the better, brighter, more inclusive future of work? So like I said, I want to kick it off with Anna, and then I'll get a response from Diego, and I really just want to encourage an open conversation from there about the kinds of questions we can ask, create those adjacent impossibilities and make them possible.
You mean the kind of questions that we ask to bring this whole future of work thing to make metaverse more relevant? Because if we look at it, I mean, right now we do see a lot of possibilities, but most people associate metaverse with gaming, and that's it. And I saw some recent studies, again, that show that most people don't think it will play any role in their professional life. So you mean what kind of questions we can ask to enhance this perception, to really make people realize the potential for their work life?
That's what I mean. Yeah, like, you know, at a certain point in time, no one would have ever believed that we could have had a video conversation with someone 8,000 miles away. So we're here, we're connecting and doing the things that nobody said is possible for the future of work, or that it's not going to be relevant. How can we make it relevant? By asking the right questions and encouraging the right kinds of conversations.
I think one could be, because I mean, for instance, one is of course about efficiency, because for instance, being here in Rome is much more efficient than if we all would have traveled to one place. I personally am a big fan of conferences in real life, probably simply because the immersive experiences right now are not yet there where it could be. But of course you could ask questions like, okay, imagine if all the time that you spent on the flight, on delays, on preparing for this conference and being there, what else could you have done with this time to be productive, or to do something recreational maybe, or to also spend it on family or something, to show people how much time and energy they could save by using this technology that we have, for instance. I mean, that's something we already had during the pandemic, I think, because previously, for instance, I and my work and my team, we used to go to clients in person while I was still doing the German market, like focusing on tech recruitment in Germany. It was super normal to go to the client in person, to meet candidates in person. But then we discovered, because we were forced to be like just online, that while we are interviewing candidates, we could take notes while doing that without seeming to be not engaged in the conversation, or we would always save the whole travel. And of course, it's better for the environment. Maybe ask questions like, okay, how much CO2 emissions did we save right now by not going this? Imagine like all the, I don't know, 10,000 people that would normally go to one conference now, if all those people would stay home during that time and just do it online, how much we would save. So these kind of things. I think something else but would also be important because right now we focus on improving our current work life with this tech, but maybe opening up new revenue channels is important as well because I saw a very interesting study about with 1,000 participants on the perception of the metaverse recently, and that's where I got this figure that most people, around 85%, perceive it as important for like recreation, fun, gaming, but not for professional life. But the ratio changed a lot with the few people that actually made revenue through the metaverse, because from those people, a high portion of them was very interested and saw it as professionally relevant because they discovered new channels of income. I think it was, for instance, yeah, one good example is the craze about Axie Infinity on the Philippines. I think it was in 2021 when there was this run, and people discovered, even though it was gaming still, it's actually a revenue channel and an additional source of income, and people were super interested in that and became like professional players for that. So these kind of things, and maybe to see how can we actually monetize the metaverse for ourselves, whether it's a company monetizing it or whether it's actually people monetizing something on the metaverse for themselves, like new income streams.
Very, very good answers for being put on the spot. Like, super deep. Thank you. Diego, what about you? Anything else that you'd add to this?
Yeah, I think that there's one thing that I'm really passionate about, and I've talked a lot about it already, which is education, right? And is one of the things that very few people are paying attention to when it comes to this type of experience, because we, and I speak we because I guess, and that's why a wild guess, but I think that most of us are Westerns, right? And most of us obviously have had good conditions on growing up and having opportunities to great schools or education systems and so on, and we are obviously very privileged with that, which makes it hard for us to understand why do we need more inclusion on education, or why or what is the depth of exclusion when it comes to education, right? And is the same pattern that is followed by a lot of my friends and a lot of people I know, questioning why decentralization of currencies, of cryptocurrency, on things like that nature are even needed, because we need the banks, we need the government having control over those things. Otherwise, we just don't see the why this is important, because we never experienced that, right? So as soon as you start going away from those initial assumptions and digging deeper on how people are learning, or the actual gap of education from countries that are under development, or very poor countries around the world, you start understanding how much of a difference that make. And one of the things that I'm extremely excited about the internet overall is that it has almost like decentralized the education factor. So if you got internet, which a lot of people in the world obviously today have, and you can go to YouTube, you can learn literally almost anything, right? And majority of that is for free, because there is obviously a different business model behind that. So that element of decentralization of education that enables people from all over the world to now start learning, almost be at the same level, if you will, of what's happening in the world and trends that are emerging. I see people talking about AI. I go to YouTube, I know how to use AI, right? Like how crazy is that, and how grateful we should be that this is a type of like evolution that we were able to create together as humanity. So for me, the next step here is which is really exciting now that we are moving towards evolving as well the way we interact digitally and the way we consume content and connect with other people, is that we will start seeing more and more that this decentralization of opportunities, which is the major thing that, with all the decentralizations that we hear every day, is the one I'm the most excited about. Because now you don't need to be in San Francisco to make in tech. You don't need to be in Paris to make in fashion. You don't need to be in New York to make in finance. You don't need to be in I don't know, like in any of those sort of like concentrated cities across the globe that are very strong into a certain industry or a certain way. Because with that spectrum of us being more connected, tooling enabling us to start from the same space, and tech and education becoming much more accessible. Now someone that is very passionate about fashion but is living in Bangladesh, instead of going to a sweatshop, now is able to provide maybe build a metaverse company that is gonna be dressing up the people that are gonna come into those spaces and want to see or show their sort of like fashion elements different, right? They want to express themselves differently. So I think that this is what it really excites me, and in a way that you can make it very tangible for everybody else, is that we are building an entire new layer of opportunities on top of our physical world, that if we are able to provide more internet and decrease the demand on how those platforms consume high power computers and chips and so on, to make it easier for everyone to get access to that, including mobile, obviously, because if you look into Asia, Africa, a lot of those countries just bypass the computer and the laptop, right? Nobody has got, not nobody, but a lot of people haven't got a laptop or a computer. They went straight into mobile because it's cheaper and more accessible. So as soon as we are able to make it easier for those people to be on the internet, to be online, and to have access to this entire ecosystem that we've been building within the internet, and now that's evolving throughout this new evolution of how we interact and connect. I'm really excited about the opportunities. I'm really excited about how we can start seeing that decentralization of opportunities, and how can we start seeing more and more people coming on board and playing a major role on how we reshape financial systems, how we reshape culture, how we reshape many different things that now we can do at scale together with people from all over the world, right? You don't need to be in the richest countries of the world to create the biggest impact.
Love it.
Dave,
Love it.
Dave, do you now see why I'm jumping out of my chair? It must be so hard to hang out with me after hearing what Diego just said.
Oh God,
Preach,
I'm gonna
brother,
for the next
preach,
2 days.
preach,
He's just gonna
preach.
be like, it's gonna be nonstop. I'm gonna be getting DM'd. I'm gonna be talking. It's gonna be. You've just ruined my
Preach.
life.
Oh, you guys rock. Listen, so we got a few we got some comments in here, but the part of the goal of this is to kind of workshop out the rest. I would love to open up any comments or questions. We got about another 10 to 12 more minutes to stay on track. Still have to take a picture and then have a POAP at the end. Does anyone want to jump right in, or do you want me to pull something out of the chat?
This is Tom.
Go ahead, Tom.
Can everybody hear me?
Sure.
Yeah. So, Dave, thanks for the quick shout out on my Adjacent Impossible article. I put a link to it in I think I did anyway. Chat. So I just want to kind of maybe gain a little altitude here and make a somewhat provocative statement, which is that I think we've been hijacked by technology. One of the things that over the years, if you think back to all of the sort of new technologies that came onto the scene, they tend not to succeed until they really deeply integrate with existing human behaviors. And this whole let's call it science of gathering, meeting, working, whatever we want to call it, is wrought with a lot of nuance. There's sentiment perception. There's all kinds of senses of emotion and smelling people and sensing blink rates. I've been looking around the room. Everybody has exactly the same blink rate in this meeting. And if we're really going to start to use these new technologies and these platforms way that will I think be transformative, we really have to think about not just the gaming, the revenue, the marketing. These are very low hanging fruit that tend not to be very sustainable. We really have to look at human interaction and human connection, the things that we are, deeply embedded in our DNA. And I don't think we've gotten there yet. I think, from what I understand and have experienced, a little bit more of an inside view at Apple's Vision Pro, they're focused on MR, not VR. And their focus on AR is going to be really pretty transformative for the industry. Now, granted, nobody's, not a lot of people are going to buy a 4,000. But if you take this out to its logical extension, these kinds of interactions that that are promised by metaverse and everything about it is it should ultimately focus on not just approximating reality, but actually advancing reality. And we're still playing catch up to reality. I don't think anybody at this table believes that this is any better than all being in the same room.
No, I agree absolutely with you. I think that's the reason why I, for instance, still go to conferences, simply because I do see all the advantages of saving time, of saving the planet, and so on. But just being in the same room with people, and you always miss the chance encounter, because if I'm in Paris at a conference, I'm not just targeting certain people like in a room. Like normally you wouldn't meet in a digital space without knowing whom you're meeting or without having an agenda. But when you're at this conference, you could, I don't know, catch someone, and the expressions, micro expressions, eye contact, all this matters. And sometimes you just have this gut feeling of human connection. And then you might see a landmark and discuss life next to that landmark. And it creates really cool moments that just unites you more than just being in a room. So I absolutely agree with what you say, that once it enhances our experiences, that's the moment when it will probably take over, and before it won't work.
So I'd
Sarah,
love to.
Sarah's got to say something. I'm just like, no, I'm
I'm
connected
jumping
to
up and
Sarah's
down.
energy, and I've never even met her, so like I know she has something to say on this. So.
I do. These are really interesting comments, and so I'd like to, and there are many at this table that can speak to this too, and I hope you would speak up if you'd like to. But it's so interesting and really valid perspectives, right? And talking about, and you hear this a lot, and talk about the metaverse and things like micro expressions and things like that being missing. And you're right, they are. But I would say, having kind of worked and in many ways lived in a virtual world for over 3 years now, and many in this room do as well. Like there's the fully distributed company of Rebella comes to work every single day in this world, and so do many other people from other countries and other companies. And I have friends around this table, like Henry pointed it out earlier, that I have never seen their face on a video or anything. I've just interacted with them in Rebella. And there's some of the best friends and colleagues that I have. And I don't think I'm some weirdo. Like, I mean, I am, but that's not the point. It's really just that I can do something here, and that I can present myself how I want to, how I wish to. And I am very introverted in person, and I joke with Alex and others that I'm a virtual extrovert, because people won't believe me if they only know me in Rebellic. But I feel like I can speak up and have a voice here that I'm challenged with in person. And something that I've learned as well is that those who benefit the most from being able to interact this way, whether it's because they can't travel, or whether it's they have a disability, or whether they want to stay home with their kid while they grow up and still be able to work and interact and socialize, the friction isn't there. Like, we don't care that we can't see micro expressions. We're paying more attention to people's voice. We're getting to know each other because we actually have small talk. And I think part of it is also the persistent nature, this habit that you mentioned, Thomas. Having a habit, somebody challenged me early on in my working and knowing in Rebella, how do you get people to be here? And I started treating it like I open every other application for work, whether it's email or instant messaging. I open Rebella, and so do many of my colleagues here, and we're enrolled all day, and we're working, and we're having meetings, but we also have that social aspect. And that's where young people are just doing that automatically, and not to be it's old person versus the young person thing. There's quite a few of us older people at this table, I think. It's more of a mindset, and those that don't need it because they have all your abilities, and they have money and can travel and all of that, which is great, but you don't need this as much as those who are here. And it is a game changer for a lot of people. And I think that that will come to the masses just as people get used to it. But it is happening here every day. And that's kind of the cool thing about Open Campus is anyone can come and experience it, the accessibility of it. So sorry, I'm here doing this work, so I'm very passionate about it. And thanks for letting me speak.
I absolutely love that because it's exactly the point I was making before when I was talking about education, and that's an expansion of that, right? If we talk about self-expression per se, like in this room, doesn't matter, what gender you are or what color of skin, what is your background, which religion, or which country you were born, like it doesn't matter because you can express yourself however you feel you want to be and you want to, sort of like be perceived, and that type of technology enabling that to happen at scale, it's definitely a major relief for a lot of people that wouldn't necessarily be in a situation like this if it wouldn't be for it, right? So that's really exciting, and I'm 100% you're not alone on that case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that.
Great challenge. I'm glad that you asked this question.
Yeah.
Because it's just like there's clearly many ways of looking at it.
One thing that you find as you get a little farther down three hole too is that anonymity is everywhere, right? And Diego can speak to that too. I mean, there are so many of these creators that are out there that don't feel like they need to be skeuomorphic in their identity. They don't feel like they need to be who you may know them as in real life to be effective. So there's the farther you get down that Web3 hole, the more anonymity you actually find. My experience.
And also not just anonymity, right? If you look at like different digital identities, the way you are on Facebook is different than the way you are on Twitter, or the way you behave, or the way you want to be perceived, or the way you talk, or the things you do, which is different than what you do on LinkedIn, which is different than what you do on Instagram, which is different than what you do on TikTok. It's all different. It's almost like you have 4 or 5 different personas that, depending on the platform you are at, you behave differently. And that has been embedded in our DNA as we transition more and more into the digital world from day one, right? Each platform has its own sort of like motto, or its own sort of like ways of why you were there, and that's already reality. It's not like, oh yeah, the metaverse is going to enable us to have more different digital identities. It's already there. It's gonna emphasize, or it's gonna give more tools so people can express themselves even more than just putting selfies or text.
Yeah, it's funny because we talk about it quite a lot in Open Campus because it's sort of the most boring metaverse out there, right? I think this is why, like Arno is talking about the stats of metaverse adoption and things like that. They don't usually look like this, but that's intentional in design. Alex here, organizational psychologist, founding this, and that kind of comes through to the space. We're like the LinkedIn of social media, or at least, I don't know, LinkedIn is sort of morphing too. But to your point, and then there still needs to be more connections between these places. But that's why what you do, your behavior in the library and the bar probably isn't the same and wouldn't be appropriate depending on what it was. So it's really interesting. We don't have fantastical avatars or anything like that here intentionally. And then thinking about, we have a lot of young people in schools young people are looking, and schools and educators are thinking about how to engage in representation and all that stuff. And what I like about, like, it doesn't have to be perfect to start using it and to start trying it and doing it. And the walking the walk, talking the talk that was mentioned earlier, I think is important for that too. This is almost like the more back to the social for social media, I think of, because I have more social interactions here than I ever do on social media in its current state. And I like that it does encourage that more being social again, especially for young people that have learned maybe to not be appropriate behavior, from Decentraland or something like, or Roblox, and then they come here, oh, this is how you act when you're at work. So that was a good point.
So I'm listening to all this, and the thing that I'm sort of synthesizing is that Thomas is right and Sarah is right.
Yeah.
Diego's right. Everybody's right in the sense that
Right.
we don't have mass adoption where it hasn't found its way to being sort of like just seamless. That's why this session may have 27 people in it instead of maybe in 10 years' time it's going to have hundreds. Who the hell knows? But I'm just wondering how we leave here trying to figure out how to do better with kind of what we have. And from my point of view, when I think of something that Anna said early in the conversation, she said she didn't necessarily know how to use it properly. I think there's an element of community that is extremely important. Like someone has to be here to help people through not just navigating the technology itself, but navigating how they feel about the use of the technology. They may feel insecure in some way. They may have the exact opposite experience that Sarah has. You know what I mean? And then I think the other thing is,
Yeah, David, I think I'll kind of jump in. I mean, I think I had the opposite experience as Sarah. I think I'm an extrovert in real life, and I feel very introverted here. It's like it's tough for me because it's like, okay, wait a second. Oh, I stood up. Oh, I'm making a fool of myself. What am I doing? Like, holy crap, I can't manage the technology. Where's the emote button? And and I mean, you guys are all great. It's awesome, and I feel comfortable being uncomfortable. But
good.
I think my question though, and I don't know if there's anyone out there that I was kind of stumbled across this idea of polarity management kind of recently. And it's a concept that I haven't really looked. I should probably look it up a little bit more. But it's like I keep coming back to this idea that like Anna was saying, she loves conferences. I love conferences. I love meeting in person. Dave, I love meeting you in person, even though we established a digital relationship first. And I think it's the part that seems to get lost in some of the extremes that people are taking is that it has to be this or this. Right. I think if we could just put an and with everything that we're talking about, like holy crap, like just it's going to be metaverse, and it's going to be in real life, and it's going to be, so anyway, there's my 2 cents from a extrovert in real life, introvert in the metaverse.
I think what we're seeing here is not unlike, in the world, in the pharma world, the sort of off-label use of something. And this whoever said before that, I think Dave, you mentioned like, somebody's right and somebody else is right, and those two things seem to be somewhat in conflict. I think what ultimately is going to emerge here is not a kind of schizophrenic existence when, where you can be whoever you want to be, where on whatever platform. But I think what we're going to discover is that we can develop and discover new authentic selves within ourselves that allow us to express who we are and what we do and care about in new and different ways. It's not, classic schizophrenia here.
Yeah, it's like a social media profile become, right? And it is about, I've had so many people say they prefer in person. Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean you have to choose, right? We can have both. The point.
Well, we could probably go another hour.
We sure could.
Chris, I'll let you close it out, man. Let's make sure we stick around for a photo at least.
I don't want to close it out, but I guess we'll have to.
We're
I do
always
want to.
on here.
This is the deepest. This is the deepest question answer we've ever had, bar none.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we just pop the hood on sort of future of education and upskilling. There's an entire economy, I think, that has yet to be defined, let alone opportunities to solve problems. And I think there's so much of this is education, so much of this is sort of the L&D process, or learning and development, talent and development, recognition and loyalty programs, so sort of some of the easy things. Henry, we didn't hear from you. I want to call you out because I don't know that this could be recorded all the way through to an hour and 30 without at least a hello from Henry.
Cheers, guys. How you doing? Yeah, I've been absorbing, and that's kind of what I do. And we're talking about extroverts and introverts, and I think there's an article that's on LinkedIn. Did you ever notice the introvert at the corner of the room who didn't say anything, but he's just absorbing everything, right? And it's a tall, handsome-looking guy, but they talk a lot about that. And I think as I sit here and I'm listening to everything, and for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Henry Massey, co-founder of Alora, who's also a pioneer in the space, building virtual experiences and trying to really break into the realm. Diego, I've been part of your academy, so thank you for my first milestone. I'm just trying to get educated in this space. So I'll tip my hat off to you, sir.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, man. As I explore metaverse, and I'm totally going to go on a rant here, Chris, and if anyone wants to take off, cool. But I think what we're experiencing right now is what I call the definition of the sociology of the metaverse. And what I mean by that is we as humans are looking for community. We're looking for our tribe. We've been doing it for hundreds of years, right? If you go 1 decade ago, we will go to like social meetups. We try to find people who are of our same religion, our politics. Maybe it's music. We like certain events. We go to raves, concerts, whatever. We're finding our community based off a certain thing. Now, if you look at what's happening right now, you have Generation A's, the alphas, who are doing the same damn thing. They're in Roblox, building communities, building things together all across the country. And they tell you, and I've spoken to a couple of them and say, I trust this guy. Let's say he's from India or Bangladesh or whatever. I trust this guy. This is my best friend. No, we've never met physically. We've never talked on the phone, but I trust this person because we've done X, Y, and Z together. And therefore, he's just part of my circle, right? So I think as we continue to explore the metaverse, it's exactly that. Here we are, we're sitting around a table. I consider every single one of you as part of my tribe. Why? Because we're talking about the one thing that I'm stupid passionate about, the metaverse, right? So most likely I'm probably gonna find you on LinkedIn, I'm gonna add you, and we're gonna become friends, just period. So I think people concentrate too much on, well, what use cases are we gonna use for the metaverse? How is this gonna benefit our organization, and so on and so forth? We're not thinking about the people, the connections that we're making, the experiences that we're supposed to be having together, the storytelling, right? I think that is what we're trying to create. So we think of future work. I don't give a shit about sitting behind a desk inside the metaverse. That's not what I'm going to be doing, by no means, right? I'm going to be experiencing something new with Sarah. I'm going to be doing something new with Diego. We're going to go experience something together, creating a story that you and I are going to remember, and that's going to create that bond. Right. So I think organizations need to start looking at it from a perspective of mirroring what it is that they're currently doing today and saying, how do we create a better workplace experience, driving that organic connection with people, period. So that's all I have to say.
Mike fucking drop. Mike fucking drop.
Mic drop. Table up. Look at this.
Now I get you got to do that is an
We all get to
thumbs up.
shake it out here a little bit. Let's get a picture, and I'll open up the doors to the POAP if anybody wants to walk down the hall and grab a POAP. We're right at 1:30.
In front of these guys, these beautiful faces.
Let's stand in front of these humans.
Hey Harmon, I wanted to say hi to you earlier. Thanks for coming.
Who's
Yeah,
got
hi,
the
Harmon,
picture
good to see
for us,
that.
Sarah? Are you gonna
I got you.
you gonna ghost? Who do we have over
No,
there
I
sitting?
can't move, so don't anyone stand in front of me.
Come on over here, guys.
Diego,
To your left.
you gotta get that pink beanie right in the middle, dude. You gotta.
But
you need
I
that
think
beanie.
you got one up though. 'Cause who's got the pink afro on?
We
As
gotta-
the color
oh,
is
Marat.
stronger.
Where should I go? Where should I go?
Just
Wherever
come on in, wherever.
Stand
Just-
beside Henry, dude.
There
Yeah.
you go. Or here.
And by the
Go
way,
on my right.
Henry helped me. I want to say a shout out to Henry again. He helped me actually frame this conversation over like a 30-minute chat the other day.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're
Love that,
good.
guys.
That's
Thanks,
my
man.
favorite
Appreciate
I
that.
wanted to dance too, but I don't know how to dance here.
You will just a second.
Is it-
We can go to the
we'll show
speakeasy
you.
after too if you want.
Well, we can do it anywhere now. Remember?
Right. Grab
let's
that
see.
picture. There you go, Diego. Nice move, dude.
There. Yeah, there's the emote panel on the right side. Actually, you see the little clapping hands on a blue circle. If you click that and you wanted to do an emote of choice for the picture, I'm
Yeah.
almost framed up here.
Ooh,
And
I
then
think
below
I got it.
that, Anna, yeah, there's an orange icon for all your dances and stuff. So, here we
Oh,
go.
That's
All
exactly
right.
how I dance in real life too. So, how
right.
do I stop dancing? Actually, yeah, okay.
Just
I
push
think
the
I
button
okay.
there.
There you go.
All
I
right,
think
so I'm gonna count us down here in a second. Oh, shoot, I'm rusty, guys. Hold on. And then
Well,
this.
we're on holiday for a month. You're allowed to be rusty.
I know, right? Whoosh. All right, colorful bunch. We're gonna take a shot here on 3, 2, 1. Emote or dance. You know, just emote or dance away. I'm just gonna take a bunch of shots here.
Awesome.
And thank everyone so much for being here. This was a great conversation. And please come back to Open Campus. We're persistent, just like the conversation will be here every day. All right.
God, that's a real Matthew Ball's book and the whole persistent interactive metaverse. I'm gonna my head will explode if we go down that road. So.
Any POAP takers?
Okay,
Anybody want a POAP? If you do, come with me. I'll pop the door open and you can scan.
What is that?
Proof of I learned this the other day. Proof of attendance program.
Let's go.
Yeah, LFG.
Let's get our POAP.
I don't think my boss is going to require that of me.